With the 6FB, sponsored by Centre by Iris, the weekly podcast for bookkeepers. Every week, we'll be talking about what's new in the bookkeeping world. Here are your hosts and founders of the Six-Figure Bookkeeper, Jo Wood and Zoe Whitman.
Hi and welcome to the Bookkeepers podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm not joined by Jo, but I am really excited to be joined by Rebecca Williams today. Hi Rebecca, how are you?
I'm dandy ho. How are you?
Dandy ho, I love that. Me too. Thank you so much for saying at very short notice that you'd like to get involved in the podcast. We weren't scheduled to have one this week, and then Rebecca went and posted something amazing in our Success Lounge, which is our members' Facebook group. And she was talking to us about how she's marketing her practice. And I was like, let's just have a chat. I feel like you're up for a chat. And Rebecca has a YouTube channel. And I was like, I feel like she's going to be really cool with doing this. Hopefully you are. So thank you for doing that. Do you want to start, Rebecca, by telling us about what you do, about your practice and all the other things?
Yeah, sure. So it depends where you want to start on the timeline. But currently, as it stands, I run a YouTube channel. So that's Miss Finance Tutorials. And we're heading up to nearly 5,000 subscribers on there now, which is absolutely insane. But that's there for anybody currently studying like ICB, AAT, one of the like foundational like diplomas in accounting and finance to ask questions. And I go through all things, Excel related, and then I focus on different topics every week to try and help them with like deciding what career path they want to go down and all that sort of stuff. So that keeps me quite busy. Alongside that, I run a Facebook group for those students. So again, where they can just ask direct questions. And even if it's a question in a book, I'll go through it with them so that everybody can see that. So if they've got that same question, they know the answer. Falling on the back of that, when I'm not doing that, I'm trying to run a business. So in February of this year, I decided to set up eCounting Made Easy Limited. And I was really particular about the name of that as well, because the e-counting comes from it being electronic. So it's remote and electronic, so completely paperless. And yeah, I just took the big giant leap to do that. So been growing the practice ever since. And in the group, a few of them will know me anyway, because I've been working with them on various bookkeeping tasks and management accounting tasks and things like that. So yeah, that's the current status.
I love it. So I'll get to your practice in a minute, but how did you come about starting a YouTube channel?
So this is really random. So, right, there's a big backstory to this. So sit down, have a cup of coffee, get ready for this.
I'm ready.
So years and years ago, I worked in practice. So I started off my career like everybody else. Started at AAT level, and I fought tooth and nail to get an AAT job, basically. So before that, I was working in care homes, I was working in call centres, anything to get by really until I got a job in accounting. So I started my AAT with a firm in a local city, which took me about 2 years to get that job in the first place. But did my AAT, and in that time, I started working with a lot of different students in the classroom where I was studying, and also actually at work. So I used to be a bit of a point of call for students who wanted help, and I seemed to be able to translate certain pieces of the course to them in a way that they understood, and I really enjoyed doing that. So when I moved on to ACA, I started doing the same thing again, and I was helping other students out. And somebody said to me, have you heard of the student societies that we run as part of ACA? And I knew a little bit about it because you get notifications when you join like AAT or ACA about them. So I just thought, let's go and join that and see what that's all about. So for 2 years, I was the president of the Northwest Chartered Accountants Student Society, which is a mouthful. So I was helping students with all sorts of things like exam questions, going down to London and meeting the chairs there, and looking at examinations, and it was all going digital. It wasn't back then, it was all paper-based, so there was all that transitional change. And so, yeah, in June 2020, when we were all in lockdown, and I had a lot of questions from students saying that they couldn't get hold of the tutors, and they were just asking questions in other Facebook groups. So I was doing my best to answer as much as possible. And I suddenly thought, why don't I just set up this YouTube channel and this group to try and help? So that's where it all started from. So, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
It's really inspiring, and I love how much you care to be able to go, well, yeah, I'll go and do this thing and make sure that I've got this like central point of contact. Oh, I love it so much. Well done. It's like really fast growth as well. Like, it just shows how needed it is. And I've watched your channel like in the evenings. I think I've like been on YouTube, and then something's popped up and there's like a quiz going on or something.
Yeah, that's it. So every Wednesday there's a quiz on there, so anyone can join. It's completely free, and you join on this piece of software called Menti. So all you do is type in the code for that week. I create the quiz, and you just simply select the answers on your phone. It's all multiple choice, so you've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. And yeah, I get plenty of students joining that weekly. Or they can go back after if they don't want to join it live, because sometimes they're a bit worried about, as they put it, making a fool of themselves. But I say there's no wrong answers here. Just give it a go. So yeah, they can join that afterwards and do it themselves in their own time as well. So, and it's on the website now.
I love it. I think you'll have some new subscribers. That's fantastic. So you worked in practice, and then in February this year, you've launched your own practice. How did that come about?
So this is interesting. It's quite funny because I always wanted to work for myself. Like for years and years, going back 10 years, I wanted to work for myself, but I had no idea what I was doing, how to do it, and all the rest of it. But it got to a point because of a few things that had happened in lockdown, and because I lost a very dear family member of mine, I started to reassess, what was important and where I wanted to go in future. And with the channel, I started bringing on individuals who worked in practice themselves to give the students an idea of what it's really like, because it's hard to translate that, because most of the time I'm just going from my own experiences. So I thought, I'll bring all these individuals on and they could talk about their story. So I had like the likes of Kath, I had you on there, and a few other individuals. And the more I was listening to your stories, the more I thought, well, why don't I just take this leap? Because, you never know. It could get to another 10 years' time where I think to myself, what if? And should I have done this? And, it could have worked out really well. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to give it a go, put everything I have into it, give it my all, and we'll see where we are. So that's really, it was inspired by the Six Figure Club. And that's no word of a lie. That's absolutely the reason why.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Well, so how's it gone? Like you're 3 months in then. How has it been easy to find clients so far?
No, I'd say it's not an easy thing to do, because you can, I'd say it's great if you've got this big network. And yes, I've got the YouTube channel, and yes, I've got, LinkedIn and all the rest of it. But to actually go out there and put yourself out there and gain those clients is something different altogether. It's like a different skill. And I know a few times on the Six Figure Club, you and Jo both talk about the fact that when you're working, you can think to yourself, oh, this is how I do things differently and all the rest of it. But actually running the practice yourself is very, very different. And you're not just, you've got to allocate your time to finding clients, putting systems in, making sure everything's, streamlined. So I'd say I know what my ideal client is, and I know where to find them. So I spent a lot of time focusing on, well, what networking events do they go to? Do they even go to networking events? Do they have time for that? Because the clients that I'm looking at are in the motor industry and construction, so property landlords, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And they, most of the time, definitely the motor dealerships, they don't have time to go to networking events. So you're not going to find them in, your local chamber of commerce sort of clubs, because they're just trying to run a business. So that got me thinking, and this is where I came to yesterday, that, well, where am I going to find these people? What are they doing in their spare time? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they just, where are they? So I came at it a different approach, and I just suddenly realized that the only way that they're going to know that I even exist or that the services are out there is if I put myself out there. So yesterday, I decided just to get a directory on Google, and I started searching for all the local like garages, all local landlords, property investors, estate agents, you name it. And then I went to Companies House. I checked, are they dissolved? Are they still running? What directors do they have? Are they my size? What previous accounts have they submitted? Are they too big? Are they too small? Etc. To make sure they were in line with my sort of client ideal base. So I got a list of 10, and I decided to pick up the phone and just ring them. So I had my elevator pitch sorted, and I again took that from the 6-figure success program. So I literally wrote it out in front of me, and the piece of paper's over there. And I just said, can I speak to the owner? And I'd got the name off Companies House where I could, because most of the time if you say, can I speak to the owner, they just put the phone down because they think obviously you're a salesperson selling. So I just explained the situation, said, look, I've recently set up in a local area. I have so many years experience. This is the services that I offer. You might not want this now, but in future, I'm just around. I'm here if you've got any questions. And I just laid it out that way. So I wasn't hard selling and saying, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. I was just like, have you thought about this? And have you thought about making Touch digital? So a few of them did give me the time of day, and one of them even asked me to come down to see them in the afternoon. So when they did, for those that said, let's carry on the conversation, I literally went to Ryman, which is a local stationery depot, and got about 100 flyers printed off. So very quickly edited this, and thankfully my partner is very good on Adobe and all the rest of it. So I just said, can you help me? So we created these flyers, and I literally went to their address and said, I'm Rebecca. Here's a face to a name. Here's my leaflets. This is what I do. If you want a further conversation, I'm around, etc. But it didn't stop there, because I had these leaflets in the car, and I just decided, what, whilst I'm here, why not waste, don't waste any time. So I got Google back up, Google Maps, found those places that I wanted to go to. I literally drove to every address. It was after closing hours because it was past 5 at this point, and just started posting these leaflets out through the doors, and it just explained all the services, etc. And I thought, that's just one way of marketing. And then today I've been focusing back on Facebook and LinkedIn. So the clients are there, and I do already have a client base, which is quite strange, really, only doing this after 3 months. But I have to say that most of my recommendations have been from word of mouth. Mm-hmm. So I think once you get that one client and you exceed their expectations, it's a lot easier than if you've got no clients and you're trying to prove to somebody what you can do for them and how you can help them. Because I'm quite a quiet person, and I'm sure a lot of bookkeepers can resonate that I don't really want to, as much as I have the YouTube channel as well, I don't like speaking up, and I don't like advertising myself. I find it very awkward, and it's not it's not something I'm familiar with, which I need to work on. So the only way to work on it is just to get out there, really, and just push yourself.
I love that determination. How did you feel? Like, when did you manage to get through to the owner of the business? Like, the person you asked for, did they generally put you through?
Yes. So there was a couple of cases where I think I put on the post in Facebook that I got told, the owner was on holiday, or they are there sometimes, and sometimes they aren't actually on holiday. So I thought, well, that's absolutely fine. So I left my number with those people who I couldn't get through to. But I'd say about 50% of the time I got through, which I think is really, really good. And it was only 6 phone calls in where I got invited to one of their premises. So really, what's that? 1/6 conversion rate is not terrible, I don't think. No. And all they can say is no. And I'll be honest, there was one individual after those phone calls who wasn't so happy about having a phone call, and was a little bit rude, I'd say. But it happens, and you just got to take it on the chin and know it's not personal. And clearly they weren't an ideal client. So it's just a case of going, okay, move on. What's next?
Yeah, I remember speaking to the owner of an accountancy practice who told me that he had actually hired someone to do cold calling, to just and actually, well, you know, this is cold calling, but you've been really focused on who you're speaking to. So I really love that you've done that research and you'd gone, right, I know my ideal client is this kind of size, in this location, this kind of business. You'd found out their name, you'd gone on Companies House to look at their accounts to validate whether this was worth your energy. So you were really clear on who. I love that. Tell us about what you included in your elevator pitch. Did you feel like you were pitching? How did you feel about sort of what you were saying? What kind of key things did you try and cover when you were talking to the client, the potential client?
So I've had this feedback before where, right, so sometimes it's easy to sort of think as if you're acting, if that makes sense. So you almost put on an acting persona, but that's not a good thing, because when you then meet the client and you get accustomed to that client, you don't want to then appear as somebody else and somebody different. So I try to keep it, you know, as if I'm just talking to a friend almost. I keep it professional, but keep it as, you know, this is who I am and this is how I work. So when I was speaking to them, you know, I was just talking about, you know, the experience I have previously, and that in the past I have worked with motor garages. I used to work with BMW for a good long while on auditing and accounts. So I know the motor industry quite well, and I know what's coming up in the industry. So when I was speaking to them, I was just sort of saying, have you thought about this? And I said, do you currently have a bookkeeper? Do you have an accountant? Do you have anybody who's looking at personal tax for you? Or if there's any of those services in future you might be interested in? And I just made it very clear that I'm available. You know, here's my phone number, here's my email address. If you ever want to talk about anything in future, I said I won't charge you for a quick call to discuss a couple of things, maybe a background sort of, you know, 15-minute power hour sort of consultation. And I just tried to make it as clear as I could that I was approachable, and that, you know, they're not wasting my time by asking me a question, and I can come in and have, you know, a few minutes time, that I just had that time to spare them, really. So I think if you come across very genuine, that you're not there to sell them something, but you're there to help them, try and word it that way, that you want to help them in some way, then it makes it a little bit easier for both parties to see, well, what can they gain from that?
Yeah, I'm sure you came across as super helpful and wanting to do for them. So, and that's the thing, like, someone isn't going to become your client because you call them one day and they're like, I mean, it would be very lucky. They're like, my bookkeeper's just left or whatever. But actually, it's that having built that, the start of that relationship, so they know you're there, and just making sure they know how to contact you in future. When something comes up, they're like, oh yeah, she said she'd have a chat with me for 15 minutes and she wasn't going to charge me. They're probably going to pick up the phone, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the time these days, people are, in fact, I speak to my partner about this because he's all online, and, you know, he creates websites and web hosts and all sorts of bits and bobs. But we were having a conversation the other night, and we just said, it's interesting now that a lot of marketing is online, which it is. It's LinkedIn, it's Facebook. But I said, but you don't really get to know the person behind what's going on Facebook and on LinkedIn, because we're not, I feel as an industry, we're not very good at bringing our personality to the table. And we're very good at saying, these are the things you need to do, and this is the compliance that you need to read or do, which really they could find, if they dug deep enough, they could find out themselves to some degree. They might not know what to do with that information, but they could certainly find it. But the reason people want to work with you is because they like you as a person. And I think it's easy to sit back and, you know, and think, how am I going to market my business? Should I, you know, create a Facebook marketing campaign, or, you know, some other similar like Google ads sort of campaign to get my name out there? But really, if people don't know you and they don't know your history, or, you know, what you can help them with, or that you're an approachable person, not just, you know, sitting behind a monitor sort of thing, they don't really want to, you know, work with those people so much. So I think if you can bring that personality to the table and show them just, you know, what you've done in the past, how you can help them, who you've helped in the past, and maybe even giving them a couple of examples, they get to know you a little bit better. So I think picking up the phone, as scary as it is, and going to these clients' premises, as scary as that is too, because you do feel like as if everybody's watching you as well. I will say that's just my sort of self-consciousness. You posting something through someone's letterbox and you're like,
Like running away. I know it was me.
I think it's good though, because you're not just a cold caller calling and they don't know you. They can see you and they can see that you're an actual person who's capable of helping. So I think sometimes online marketing's great, but I think you've got to give that personal touch if you can find a way of doing that.
Do you think that, you know, the people that you've put the flyers through the doors for, will you call them up now to say, I put my flyer through, I don't know if you saw it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because having worked in practice, I always used to be the first one in our office. So I was the first one to get the post in the morning. And I know how much posts these individuals get, these companies. And a lot of the time it's just a case of like, I'm just going to throw that away. Like, what is that? You know, it's just another flyer through the post. So I think if you make that almost give them time to have a look, don't bring them straight away. But today, definitely this afternoon, I'll be ringing around and just saying, you know, I hope you got that flyer. I hope it's not in the bin somewhere. Making even a bit of a joke about it sometimes can help. And they're like, oh yeah, I did see that actually. And just touching base is better than just leaving it for a week and hoping that something comes from it, because it, you know, people forget easy because they've got so much to do themselves in the business, don't they? As you probably know, if you get something through the post today, you might think, I'll chase that up or I'll look at that on the weekend. And the weekend comes and your time gets consumed with everything else that's going on. And it's not that you intentionally, forgot about it. You're just busy. So unless you bring like yourself to the front of their memory almost, it's not gonna get you too far, I think. So yeah, definitely I'll be ringing up again. Maybe even pop by.
I agree. I'm just thinking about, like you said, the kind of things you get through the door. There's a tree in our garden that definitely needs a bit of cut. I can remember a guy coming round. I've had flyers through the door and I've been like, I must look one of these people up, and not really getting around to it. And then a guy knocked on the door and I don't know if he was one of the people who'd given us a flyer, but I had a conversation with him and I was like, right, what would you do? What should I expect to pay for this kind of thing? And then he gave me a flyer and I can't remember if it was one we'd already had or not. We actually didn't go with him because I was like, I need to think about this. I wasn't expecting to book you today. So I need to like do my research now. And probably people need to do that too. Like go and sense check, is this right? And from my point of view, I couldn't find any info or recommendations about him online. So I was like, no, sorry, I can't validate who you are. So leave it with me and I've got your phone number. I'll get in touch if I decide to go ahead. But I think there is definitely this kind of sense checking that we want to do before we buy anything. And it's probably the same for our clients. Like you showing up is fantastic because people now know you've been able to speak to them about, these are the things that are coming up for you. I know how to deal with that. Here's a leaflet with information about what I do to make sure you've got my contact details. And they'll probably stick it on the fridge or something if they're interested in it. You know, like whatever the equivalent of is in the garage. And then they've got your info, but there's some kind of like going and checking, seeing if there are any like recommendations or looking you up on LinkedIn to check what your qualifications are, that kind of thing that's probably going to happen next.
Yeah, and also, as my partner has said, because he works in that sort of field, and I know nothing about that field. I'm just going to tell you, I know nothing. He's speaking another a language to me half the time. But he always says it takes somebody at least six points of call before they decide to even, go ahead with a phone call or buy anything. So 6 times they've got to see you or look at your website or speak to you or whatever it might be. Then just bear that in mind with a client. And I'm not saying 6 times in one day or a week. It takes people a good couple of weeks sometimes to make a decision, or even a month. I'm sure you've had those phone calls with clients where they ring up and say, can I have a power out or whatever? You have that phone call and then you don't hear anything again for another 3 months or so until they've made that decision, because it's just taken them that amount of time. So I think it's important not to give up if you don't hear back immediately, but just to bear it in mind that they've got their own timing and thought process going on. So don't feel disheartened is what I'm trying to say. That
I agree. Like it's like sometimes something needs to happen for them to be like, okay, I'm ready now. I need to call Rebecca.
But you just got to be ready when they're ready. That's the key.
Yeah. Would you, so in terms of like online marketing for your business, thinking about those kind of clients, would you think of starting a YouTube channel? Or like, what could you do that will run alongside that physical, like actual in-person contact with people to help you spread the word?
So I think going forward, I will be creating another YouTube channel. I've actually been thinking about this for about a good 3 weeks now, because what they always say, right? So I follow a lot of individuals who've had YouTube channels for years and years, and I've always followed their advice regarding, daft things like thumbnails and how to engage and all the rest of it, because that's a learning process in itself, learning how to, just create a YouTube channel and run that and post in times, etc. But they always say not to mix content. So I wouldn't want to post something about my business on the YouTube channel that is specifically to help students, because it's like a mixed message. So I think in future I'll create a YouTube channel, and I have created a couple of videos already. They're just not up on there. So that'll be, I think for me, my two platforms are Facebook and YouTube. I know you're very good with Instagram, aren't you? Zoe?
That's the thing I open. That's the thing I open. But it depends what the purpose is, isn't it? Like everything has its own place. You've clearly built an amazing community through YouTube, through running your quizzes, and that's important for supporting students. But in terms of a client, there's more of a sort of, it's probably that opening their eyes through some kind of training. So giving people the insights into exactly how knowledgeable you are about the challenges facing them. So you could go quite niche, couldn't you? I've been trying to do some gardening. I literally watch tomato videos about how to look after tomato plants, and by a guy who just grows tomatoes. So like when you think about when you know who you're speaking to, you know what kind of content to create, don't you? And so Instagram works differently because it's much more about sort of broadcasting, and maybe you could bring one person on for life, but you're not going to build a community there, or you're probably not going to put long form video, but YouTube would work well for that. So it's thinking about what you use well and what kind of thing you want to create.
And I think I'm quite lucky, because one of my main clients now, he's in the motor industry, but he's quite a very down to earth chap. So I'm always asking him, what if I did this? Would you like that? Would you watch that? Would you, is that too much? Or, I always bounce ideas off him, and he's really happy to do so. He's a really, really nice guy. But he said to me point blank, I sent him a really long email very early on asking him for umpteen's amount of information. And he just said to me, I rang him up and I said, have you read it? And he went, have I heck? What do you mean, have you heck? And he said, do you think I've got time to read a massive email? And I said, good point. Maybe not. No. I said, well, how would you prefer your communication with me then? Do you like text messages? Do you like WhatsApp? Do you like, you just tell me and I can change it. And he said, actually, because he's so busy, he would just prefer, a quick video walking through. And Kath in the group uses Loom. So thank you, Kath, because I took that idea and decided, let's just create a Loom video around the questions that I had. And he loved it. So I thought, well, that's, something that I've learned. So yeah, it's just gauging how they want to learn information from you, or how they're going to communicate or watch or read or whatever it might be, their preferred communication, and putting that into practice. So for me, the YouTube channel would be great, because he can then just go on and watch some update that's relevant to him, or watch something relevant to the industry, like the Making Tax Digital, etc., and what we need to prepare for, and X, Y, and Z. But I also think, I don't know about yourself, maybe this is a personal preference, but I don't like reading things either, just because I don't really have a lot of time. But if somebody, creates a video for me that I can watch visually, because I'm a very visual person, I'm more likely to convert into a sale, or to read further, or, subscribe to their channel, etc., because I can just put it in the background and do whatever it is I need to do. And I'm usually doing about 10 different things at once. So that's, the way that I prefer. So I think it's just key narrowing that down where you can to whatever social platform you prefer and what communication.
Yeah. What works for you, what works for your client. That's why having an ideal client is so important, isn't it? Because you can just like get quite focused on what's the one thing I need to spend my time on here. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so you do quite a lot of things as well. Like you've got your YouTube channel, you're running your practice as well. You've also you've created a course as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So this came about again because in the Facebook group. So I'll just say I am not a tutor. I haven't trained as a tutor. I've never worked as a lecturer in any form. But there were so many requests from students in the Facebook group asking me to tutor them for various different topics. So I did. And I've been doing that on and off now for a good, 20 or so months where I can. But there was more and more requests from them asking for an Excel course. So I've been using Excel for, I don't know how many years now, maybe 17 years, 18 years, something like that. So I said, I can give you the tutoring for the half an hour, or I can create this course and you can do it in your own time, do whatever you need to do. And they said, yeah, that's a great idea. So for the past 6 months, I've been creating this course that is ideal for anybody who's, maybe stepped away from Excel, who's now stepping back in again, who's not used it for a while. It's a very basic course. So it goes through everything from where to find things on Excel to VLOOKUP, HLOOKUPs, all different types of functions, formulas, pivot tables, charts, etc. If you're somebody who's never prepared a management report before in Excel, it talks you through how to do that as well. So basic formatting, everything that's covered, I'd say, within the ICB and AAT. So for somebody who needs to work in finance and needs to have a good understanding of Excel, it talks you through it. So it's a good 2-hour course. There's handouts in the course as well. It's all say me talking through the course throughout. So it also lists, what you'll learn, etc. And at the end of the course as well, you get a certificate of completion because the course is CPD accredited. So it goes towards your CPD units that you require at the end of the year. So yeah, that's now up on the channel.
What I really love is that you see the opportunity. So you obviously there's a need here. People are asking you for this all the time, and you probably can't train as many people one-to-one as would like you to train them. So it's like seeing a way to deliver what you do to multiple people at the same time, or without you needing to go through the same thing over and over again. And that's an extra revenue stream for you. And Jo and I talk about passive income a lot. We run a passive income program for bookkeepers, and some people are on that program with us, building their own courses on various things that will help their clients. And it's just that, we all have knowledge, don't we? And we forget that. I remember my first job, I didn't know how to use Excel. If there was a course, that would have just helped me out so much. And it gives people that head start, doesn't it? So you've obviously got these kind of 2 ideal client groups, because you're working with students in the way you do with training them and supporting them, and that fits with that business. But you're also working with your clients. But there's probably stuff you can do with your clients as well, where there's some kind of course. It might be a paid thing. It might be something, there's a training that you put out there that helps you raise your profile, and something you can share to the wider audience, which helps you sort of show your expertise and credibility to bring more people sort of towards you and your business. But I love how the sort of leap that we've taken with technology over the last couple of years because of COVID has actually shown people how possible it is for us all to get out there and create something like this. It's really exciting. Lucy is asking in the comments how to access it, and we'll make sure we share the link in the show notes, unless it's easy for me to drop on the screen, Rebecca. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I hadn't even realised there was comments there. I've just gone through them. About tech savvy. Yeah, hi everybody. Hi Lucy, Annabelle, Steph, Kath, Sally. Yeah, I can pop that in there somehow.
If you want to send it to me on the private chat, I'll pop it up on the screen.
Oh, yeah, bear with me a second.
We'll make sure that it's in the show notes. So if you want to go and have a look at the course, you can access that. I think it's just so it just makes so much sense. I think we're all doing something where we can share that information to the wider audience and just bring extra income into the business.
I think one thing I'll say as well is that like I think I saw something that you posted, Zoe. I think it was in the 6-month success program where you were talking about 2 years prior to meeting Jo, sorry. You were just a regular accountant, as you put it, like just, doing your own thing, doing the business. But I think with this Facebook group, and like the 6-figure group and the student group, I didn't realize just how much presumed knowledge I have. And I'm sure it's the case for everybody in the group as well. There'll be something that that you just presume everybody knows, and they don't.
No,
because they've not had your experience, have they? So there's I don't know. It makes me very excited. I get butterflies thinking about all the different things like that we can showcase as a group and just help even just, clients or even external individuals, people who are new to the industry, who've never seen even the lights of, Xero and QuickBooks. When you were new to Xero and QuickBooks, I don't even to this day think that there is a lot of course material out there to help you with really specific things like sore points with the system, for instance. It shows you how to do a bank reconciliation, but doesn't show you what to do when the bank reconciliation goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, which people in the group have had, 10 years experience with. So why not push that out there online to show people that you have this experience and you can help them in some way and create a course? If I can do it, anybody can certainly do it. That's for sure.
Likewise. Exactly. Oh, I love that. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing sharing this journey with marketing. I think it's really inspiring. Now, I've seen that Kath's going to go and get some leaflets, and you've had lots of people celebrating you for doing that. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about your business. We wishing you so much success with the future. Obviously, we will be in touch within the Success Lounge, but we'll share the link for your course, and go and follow Miss Finance tutorials on YouTube as well. How else can people connect with you, Rebecca, if they want to find out more about what you do?
They can connect on Facebook, Facebook Messenger in any way. On LinkedIn, you can find me on there. YouTube, either leave me a comment. I review the comments daily. So if you leave a comment on there, which it's just Miss Finance Tutorials, you'll see it. It'll pop up. I will definitely get to it and say hello. Yeah. And any questions anybody has in the group, I'm always here to help answer where I can.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. We will be back next week for another episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Zoe. Bye.